Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to the Aurum podcast this bright Saturday morning. I am your host, and my name is Anthony Kuria, and welcome to this show. All matters that regards human capital. As you know, this month, we've been discussing issues that regards contracts, and we are glad that you could be able to join us. This is the Aurum podcast that is hosted by Aurum Consultants, and Aurum Consultants is a HR and risk advisory consultancy that helps all types of businesses build winning teams. Today, I'm with my co-host and our in-house HR consultant. Her name is Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you. Good morning, all.
Yes, and also our wonderful guest, our HR specialist. Even as consultants, you still need to consult. So we have Martha Thuku joining us today. Karibu sana, Martha.
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, everyone.
Yes, if you've been watching this show, you know that Martha also works with LVCT Health as the HR lead. And Martha, for someone who doesn't know what you do there and how LVCT can help, kindly give them a quick once-over on what you do there and what LVCT can be a benefit to them.
Okay, and thanks so much for the opportunity. Viewers, as you heard, I work as a HR lead in LVCT Health, and we are big in matters supporting the government in eradicating HIV and AIDS. And besides that, we are very big on mental health issues and GBV. We are the lead, actually. So, especially during this time of COVID, so many issues came out that we didn't know, and we found families and employers in a tight place because they didn't know how to help their staff on matters mental health. And so, I would like to let you know you do not have to be worried, and you don't have to be alone to fight that challenge of mental health. Please reach out to LVCT Health, and you can go to our website and you will find how you can reach us, or you can reach me through this podcast, or I'm consultants, and we'll be able to assist you. So many corporations have joined us. We are really helping them out, sort their staff, and please don't be left out. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Martha. Indeed, mental health is a big deal. Now, as I said in this Aurum podcast, we've been discussing this month on issues regarding contracts. From a HR perspective, from a human resource management perspective, this is a fundamental core of how entities, companies engage their staff. When you bring them in, then you've got to have a contract on agreeing on the terms of references on how you will work. Now, today we want to discuss, when it comes to contracts, we'll be discussing on alteration of contractual agreement. Yes, you have a contract, but then the issue comes in, how do you alter a contractual agreement? Now, Zippy, let me start with you. Somebody may wonder, okay, you're talking about a contract. And most of us have this idea that a contract is like the law of the needs and the passions. That once it is put, it is cast in stone. Nothing can happen to it. If you either break it up and we begin afresh, or there are legal consequences for breaking it, or even altering a comma or dash. So tell us, what is a contract alteration?
Thank you, Anthony. We've been talking about contracts and whether we should issue contracts or not, and the importance of having contracts. But there comes a time sometimes when you realize you might need to alter an existing contract for an employee. And the question is, what does it mean to alter a contract? When you give an employee a contract, there are terms of engagement. You have agreed on what needs to be done and the terms of that contract. But you're looking at a scenario where you're realizing maybe you need to alter the same for whatever reasons, which I'm sure we'll discuss. Um, I would say this is a
Sure.
modification. This is making changes to an original document that had been agreed upon, had been signed upon, and is a document that has been existing. And now we are looking at modifying that document for whatever reason we want to modify it. Um, and that is in a very nutshell, it's a very basic definition of what a contract alteration is. However, we cannot alter a contract again without following the law, because the law is very clear about
Mm,
contract alteration. You can alter this contract without consulting the employee who you have engaged, and you're realizing there's need to alter this contract. So contract alteration is where we need to make a modification of an existing contract that has been agreed upon and signed by both parties.
okay. Okay. Martha, what's your take on this aspect of now what you're calling contract alteration?
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And viewers, we learned about the employment contract, and we learned that it's an agreement between the employer and an employee. So you can have consultancy contracts, you can have even contracts, other contracts that are not employment. A contract is an agreement between two people. So it is legally binding, and it can be verbal or written. When I was thinking
Mm.
about this topic, and I was wondering, how can you alter a verbal?
Yeah. How do you alter a verbal contract?
How do you alter a verbal contract? Anyway,
Mm.
so what is a contract alteration is changing the terms and agreements that have already been agreed upon
Yes.
by two
Yes.
people. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
So when you alter, you're basically what we are saying is that contract alteration then what can we say? It can be altered if the parties involved are in agreement that a change needs to be made. Will that constitute a legal alteration of a contract, an employment contract in this case? Is it?
So when
Mhm.
you alter from where I sit, and I
Yes.
have some friends who are watching, and you can contribute to this very sensitive topic.
Yes.
Um, what I can say is we agreed, and we have seen that is a legally binding agreement.
Sure.
Whether it's verbal or written, it's legal. So how do you
Yes.
alter contracts? Then, so for me, from where I sit, I know that you can't wake up. Let's talk about employment contract here, because we are representing employment contracts today.
Yes.
And as an employer, Tony, you can't wake up and just alter the contract
Yes.
uh, for various reasons. Because how are you altering it? What are you changing? Is it the salary? Is it
Uh-huh.
the terms of engagement? Is it what I do? That only you wake up in the morning and you decide Martha is in HR, but now I want her to go to marketing.
Mm.
And you change, and now you want me to go and market.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that's not legal, and it's not a good way to do it, because
Yes.
we should both agree. I should be able to tell you, hi, Tony, you can't take me to marketing. Even if, like,
Mm.
I know how to talk, I can't sell.
Yeah.
The organization
Yeah.
will go down. So
True,
please
true,
keep
true.
me in HR. So whatever alterations that happen in the contract, then just as the way we agreed when we were signing that
Yes.
contract, please let's agree every alteration. And
Aha.
then now
Aha.
there will be no back and forth after that. Thank you. And
Thank
Zippy
you.
can
Thank
add something. Yeah.
Zippy, what's your
Well, I
take?
think, Martha, you have put it very well. As an employer, you can't wake up one morning and just decide to alter contracts. And like Mother said, this is a very sensitive aspect when it comes to the employee engagement. And you must have thought through it. What are the reasons you want to alter the contract in the first place? Are they genuine reasons? Are they, legal reasons that you would use to alter any existing contract? And like Mother has said, and we will talk about this, the law is very clear. You cannot alter a contract unless there's consultation. Consultation here is a key word, and it's very critical for you to be able to consult the people who are involved or the person who is affected by this alteration.
So, to our audience, kindly send in your questions and comments. As Martha has said, some of her colleagues, some of her fellow HR experts are already watching us and listening in. Kindly contribute, send your comments or questions in, and we would love to sample them. If you have an answer to probably you're thinking, okay, guys, I have a better way to define this, kindly. We would love to do this because this is a discussion where we are growing each other up. Now, then the next question that comes up, which was alluded by, I think it was Zippy, uh, does the law allow for contract alteration? Zippy, kindly give us a bit more on that.
Thank you, Anthony. The simple answer to that is yes, and this is provided for in the Employment Act. If you look at Section 10, 5, Clause 1, it does provide for contract alteration and how this can be done. And this is where any matter stipulated in subsection 1 of the employment contract changes. The employer shall, in consultation with the employee, revise the contract to reflect the change and notify the employee in writing. So it does provide, but it also provides the how you go about the same. Consultation, again, very critical. And let's be in agreement. There arises times when probably it's important, and the employment terms sometimes conditions allow for the kind of alteration that needs to be made. Sometimes in businesses we face those situations, and the question is, when you're faced with this situation, then how do you legally alter this contract? And like I've mentioned, the Employment Act is clear. Section 10, Chapter 5, Section 1, Clause 1, it says how you can, and it allows an employer to be able to alter contract, but in consultation.
So, Martha, there, Zippy has given us the legal anchor for these kind of adjustments that you're talking about. What's your take? What's your view on the same? Yeah, looks like Martha is a bit frozen there. Connection is a bit weak. So, Zip, you're saying that this alteration is anchored in law, and there is within the law there is there is a section that allows for alteration of these adjustments. Now, I'm just wondering. Let's say today I went to my, if I was employed, I went to my boss and I said, can I suggest we do some alteration to the arrangement we already have? Like what Martha was saying. I'm in HR, but and the contract says that I'm supposed to be a HR lead or HR marketer, but I think my strength could be, something else. Can can an employee, this is highly unlikely, but there are people who come and they say, okay, I'm thinking of shifting. I would like to do in marketing, I would want to do in sales, I want to do ABCD. Can the employee of a company initiate that kind of a discussion to alter their contract to do something slightly different to what they signed for, or that is unheard of?
Thank you again for that question, and I can see Mother is back, but just to respond to that as Mother prepares, an employee can request for an alteration. An alteration can happen both ways. And I think it's easy when it's the employee who has come and they have requested for an alteration, because a lot of times that alteration is to their benefit. I think the biggest challenge comes here, and this is what we really need to delve in, is when the contract alteration is going to affect the employee negatively, is going to change probably their remuneration, is going to change the position they hold. That is where actually the biggest challenge comes in, and this is where you find this resistance, and you will find the employees probably feeling I'm not being treated fairly, why me, all these kind of things. But an employee can go to the employer and say, I've been looking at my contract, this is what I've been doing, and I kind of feel probably I can be able to fit in another area. Could we alter this contract? So where you find the alteration does not affect like the salary or benefits, you might find it's easy to alter such a contract. But when it's on the flip side, it affects the remuneration, it affects the benefits, then that becomes quite a headache. And that is where consultation is very critical and how you go about it. That is where you have to make sure the process you use to get to that place of altering that conduct is very clear. You are engaging the relevant people to be able to alter the contract in the right way. You are minuting the conversation. I've realized sometimes as employers, we want to take some of these things casually. And I want to come to you and say, Anthony, I'm thinking about making changes to your contract. And there's no documentation, there's nothing. It's a conversation between me and you. And I go ahead and make those changes. Again, that becomes very dangerous because in the event there's a litigation, then what would have been your process to arriving in such a decision that you altered my contract? Again, will I consent to it? I guess that's a question again we can debate whether I will consent to you reducing my benefits and what options I have. Yeah.
Okay. Martha, there was a bit of a technical hitch on your end. I was asking, or you found me asking you, Zippy talked about how legally you can be able to alter, whether the law does allow for alteration of a contract. What's your view on the same?
Okay, and I'm sorry about that, about my internet challenges, but now I'm back.
No.
So, Tony, you can imagine if the alterations were positive, the law will never come in. So I think that's why it was put in the law, because then it takes care of when everything is going south. So
Okay.
and you realize when an employee wants a contract change, it will always be some additional. It will either be promotion and of course change of salary. So it will never be anything except something around that. Or so it's always the advancement, and that is allowed. And employees out there, if you feel that you have worked very well, please go with justification. If you're in sales, say this product I was selling, I found it selling at 5%. Now I'm selling it at 70%. That's a good justification. Just go and negotiate. However, I think this law was brought because then I think earlier, most organizations, especially, and that's why we talk a lot to the CMEs, someone thinks I own this company, and Zippy has come in, and the employer doesn't like the way she has done her hair, and so Zippy is going to receive a salary reduction. And someone starts looking for reasons for that salary deduction. Or you can imagine even some shops where someone appears and maybe the employer just says, get out of my office and leave. So all those things, they kind of affect the contract you have with that person. And that's why the law came in. So I will agree with Zippy, and the law is very clear that when there is an alteration, we need to discuss and agree. And there are things that we have put, and maybe we can even dive into the question. Then, what are these areas that would allow a contract to be altered? In my head, I was thinking through this, and it hit me, especially in 2020 when COVID checked in our country. And maybe
Yes.
and you know, before that, all over the world there were issues. And then there
Yes.
was downtime in economy,
Yes.
and then people had to manage their own organizations and how that was affecting them.
All right.
And for me, if the employer just woke up and closed, then
Yes.
that is not fair. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can come to with your employees. They all know there is COVID. Let's
Mm-hmm.
discuss. I know an organization, they
Mm-hmm.
discussed because they had two options: to lay off
Mm-hmm.
half people or to put all in half salary and maintain all the staff. You get? So that decision was
Mm.
not made by the CEO only. The staff agreed,
Okay.
yes, let's do half salary, and then so
Yes.
that no one goes home. At least someone has something at the end of the month. So, and
Sure.
those discussions went, it was not a one-day discussion. It was,
Mm-hmm.
it followed through, and even up to today, I'm not sure those my friends have gone back to their main salaries. And what they
Okay.
discussed was documented.
Uh-huh.
So there's others who didn't have a choice but to close down. So
Mm.
your contract is there, but we don't have money to pay. What should we do? And you
Yes.
advise people, I cannot even pay you. So you
Mm.
such an instance, you can't even go to court because the organization doesn't have money. It's not that
Yes.
they didn't want to pay you. COVID came,
Mm-hmm.
there were no sales, so there's no money. But those has
Mm.
to be discussions, communications, very difficult
Mm.
communications to
Mm-hmm.
that come in to alter contracts. I work with NGO and I have done that for a few years, and you find there are funding issues in NGOs.
In the angel world, yes.
Yes. So even how you're coining your contract, even the length of the contract, it is very
Mm.
wise to
Mm-hmm.
discuss how that should be. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
should it align with the period of the project? Because then
Mm.
after that you don't have any other money to pay. And and then when it is the final year of the project, what do? You need to actively remind people, oh, by the way, this is the final year of the project.
Ah.
And we
Mm.
don't know if we'll get more funding. So what does
Mm.
this mean? This means when your contract ends,
There is a
may
chance.
not be able to continue because we will not be a going concern. So
Mm.
communication, communication, communication is the key to changing employment contracts. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Martha, that no wonder you are our HR specialist. You have brought it so well that even Mr. Kenwood Arogo in our chat is saying it's very educative. And indeed, it is very educative to learn some of these things. Now, let me bring a scenario. What if an employee does not consent to the proposed alteration? Zippy, I am not interested with that alteration you're proposing. Yeah? Yeah, you're proposing to alter my contract. And I'm thinking, buddy, me, I'm not interested. So, how do you handle that?
Thank you, Anthony. And I think Mother has put it very well. Communication is very critical. And
Mm,
legally, like I alluded earlier, legally, the employer has a right to alter contract. You can
mm,
alter. The question is the how you alter the contract. The
okay.
communication Mother has talked about. How we communicating about these intentions? How we documenting the same? That is number one. So as an employee, I have been told that my contract needs to be altered, and I am not keen to consent to that. I am not totally in agreement with that. And a lot of times, especially if it's going to affect my benefits, it's going to affect my salary. Really, will I be in agreement? Chances are not, unless
Mhm.
I clearly understand the circumstances that are surrounding my contract to be altered. Now, what happens if an employee does not consent? Does that mean the employee is completely tied? And I think this is where, as employers, sometimes we feel the law is against us. The law is not protecting me as an employer.
Mm,
But that does not mean you don't have a choice, because the contract
Mhm.
also provides for, reasons for termination. It provides a termination clause. So in the event we get to a complete disagreement and we are blocked and we cannot move forward, then you must seek other options. Now, with these other options, I always say it's very important for you to consult and consult widely. Consult the legal counsel. If you are a member of FKA, consult the FKA. If you have a collective bargaining agreement, make sure consultations are widely made, so that even as you get to a decision of saying, okay, these are the options I've offered to this employee, the employee has completely refused, they don't want to be reasonable. The only option I'm seeing is actually probably terminating this contract. Then at that point, you consult and seek counsel widely and make an informed decision. But the critical aspect here is the process,
Mm.
how the process has been done, how you have documented the same, how you have arrived at your final decision. Because remember, as an employee, I can refuse to consent, and I could end up resigning, and end up, bringing a little legal litigation against you because I'm feeling I've been treated unfairly, or it's an issue of constructive dismissal, which as an employee you must prove, by the way. You can't just wake up and say it was a constructive dismissal. You must prove beyond reasonable doubt, this led to such a scenario. So the process, the documentation, how you arrive at that decision is very critical. So it doesn't mean as an employee, if I refuse, then the employer has no options. Yeah, because
Mm.
what I said earlier, before, as an employer, before you get to the decision of I need to alter a contract, you need to have thought about it very critically. You need to have very genuine reasons why you need to get to the decision of altering an employee's contract, because it's affecting their livelihood. And Mother has talked about, for instance, COVID came, you know,
Yes.
businesses suffered, you know, and
Yes.
businesses had an option of we are closing down, or we are sending 80% of the employees away, and
Mm.
it's a question of consultation and asking, should we send everyone away, or should it be okay for us to take a pay cut and everyone stays afloat and everyone has something small? So that process is very, very critical to help us reaching a decision.
Okay. Okay. Now that is very good in terms of understanding the same. And I was about to ask, I was about to bring the discussion of about some of the reasons for altering of contracts, and that's what you're about to briefly discuss. And Martha, you've already brought in the issue, for example, a very obvious issue the last 2 years, the issue of the COVID pandemic, which had a very significant economic effect on the company, on many institutions' ability to maintain their wage bill and things like that. But apart from COVID, apart from obviously COVID forcing entities to adjust their contracts, what other could there be other reasons for alteration of contracts apart from the obvious? You know, COVID may to affect. We are a restaurant. We are lockdown, we can't do anything. So our chefs, our waiters, our who, kazi imeisha. Could there be any other reasons on untypical normal work operations that could bring an effect of contract alterations? Martha, we can hear from you. What's your take?
Yes, thank you, Anthony. And it is true, it's not just COVID that can
Yes.
bring contract alterations. There are many other things that come into play during
Yes.
normal, when we have normal years. These days we have been living in abnormal years. But
Yes,
during
that's true.
normal years of operation, there are various things that can bring contracts into alteration. It may
Yes.
be it's change of business,
Yes.
uh,
Uh-huh.
and then this is what you are doing, but now this is where we have gone, and this is what we are currently doing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how that needs to change the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can be downsizing, or you can be, what is this, merging with
Mm-hmm.
another organization. All those things affect, because then there's something new that is happening. Every time
Yes.
there's a reason, there's something new happening, then you'll find some contracts may change, and may not, what you have is not what you you have been having. And as I said, the issues come when this change is affecting the employee negatively. When it's affecting positively, the communication still needs to be there, but you'll find there's not, noise is minimum because you're not
Mm.
you are gaining. If Tony, I'm
Yes.
changing your contract, um, today you are a finance officer, and then
Mm-hmm.
because of this new merger that has a new name for your position and it comes
Mm-hmm.
with more money, we will
Mm-hmm.
not hear noise from you. So,
Absolutely.
so various things make contracts be changed,
Mm.
entering into a new venture, um,
Mm-hmm.
closing business altogether and starting something new. So
Yes.
it helped that those things happen in under normal circumstances of running business, and
Mm.
that's why the law is there, so that you know you are guided by law whichever way to do. And ZP lured
Mm-hmm.
into something I had forgotten. Should there be, are you an organization that has collective bargaining going on?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, any, let this, if there are changes happening, like
Yes.
I said, I worked in a bank, the bank, and collective bargaining was the main thing. We used to
Yes.
carry the collective bargaining agreement and the labor law, you know, like this.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
knew, what am I right?
Yes.
So you can imagine now in the banking industry, and there are changes, the people, the team that is making planning how this communication will be, a representative of the trade union must be part of that team,
Yes.
because this is a person now who will go and get buy-in from the people they represent. Otherwise, it can turn out to be very bad, especially if if the organization is not closing down. The changes are
Mm.
coming, but the organization is still vibrant. And
Yes.
then there are some negative changes that are happening. Then you
Yes.
need to be very clear. You need to have legal representation,
Mm.
and because some people will refuse
Yes.
to to accept that change, especially where they were not involved in the communication and they were in agreement,
Mm.
and they didn't come into agreement that there will be changes. And you'll find some employers will want to make these changes emotionally, yeah, because
Yes.
someone is talking bad about ZP, and
Mm.
Tony, you are the boss, and then now you now you don't like ZP, and you don't know
Mm.
why that person doesn't like ZP. So they
Mm-hmm.
bring bad vibe, and you remember we talked about grapevine information.
Yes. Grapevine.
And
Yes.
grapevine can be fruitful, but it can also be destructive
Yeah.
based
Huh.
on how it's being brought. So out of
Uh-huh.
malice, you decide ZP doesn't perform. You don't go to the performance evaluation of the managers
Yes.
to see how they are being. You just decide, people are saying ZP is not a good worker. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
perform. So we are changing the terms of contract. In fact, even the new position, which is has little, she will even go through probation or PIP.
Mm.
You know, organizations like using that PIP, performance improvement plan.
Yes.
My take is everything must be backed up by paper, that
Mm.
CP, you have continuously not performed for the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
Yes.
like 3 years ago, this is how you performed. 2 years ago, this is how you perform. You know, and you know, performance management discussions, you have signed that this
Yes.
is my final evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things should be the backup you have for changing someone's contract. So even when they refuse, then you're able to remind them, look at this trend, yeah? So you can't
Mm-hmm.
wake up today, one day, and decide ZP is not a performer. And
Mm-hmm.
so the contract terms are changing. We are overpaying her and she's not doing, she's supposed to be in level C and we have put her in level A. So let's take her to level C. That
Mm.
employers, that's a very bad way of managing staff, and you need backup. And when you do that and someone pushes back, please seek legal redress. Talk to a
Mm.
lawyer. This is what I would want to do. What are my options? And when you're talking to the lawyer, then you're going with backup information. You can't tell the lawyer that people are saying.
People are saying, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why that person will resist that change, because you can't evaluate them with what people are saying. You have to bring documentation,
Okay.
backup, and then the communication you had. I hope I have answered that question well. Thanks.
Wow, Martha, you have made it look very nicely. You and Zippy have really brought the HR aspect into this, where we clearly understand that yes, there is a legal basis if either party, employer or employee, wanted to alter a contract. But because of the different scenarios that we find ourselves in, as you said, there could be issues to do with unavoidable circumstances like what has happened across the world because of COVID. Then there could also be issues of where you could be good. I want to alter the contract because we have merged with a different company or we have grown, and now you're thinking you are an officer, we want to promote you to be a manager. So that internal promotion is also a form of in contract alteration, where we are giving you bigger responsibilities, bigger pay, bigger perks. And I don't think any employee would have an issue with that. That one, as you said, we will shake hands. I take the big paycheck, sit the bigger office, and we move on. But when it comes now issues that adversely affect both especially the employee, where now things have to be made, adjustments have to be made. And Martha, I like the fact that you're brought in that, now we promoted you, that person we made to be a manager, we are thinking, dude, I think we promoted you too quickly. We need to hit reverse gear. Now that reverse gear becomes a problem because taking me back to where I was, then there may be resistance, there may be need of legal counsel and things like that. Ladies, and even to our viewers today, I believe we've had some very deep, very constructive discussion on this particular kind of discussion when it comes to contract alteration that is not normally discussed a lot when it comes to employment relations, but it is important for us to do so. And as we come to the end of our program and our podcast today, I'd like to encourage us, even those who send their comments, that if you'd like to get to know more about what we do, you can get in touch with us, with the media at the bottom of your screen, through WhatsApp, through YouTube, through Facebook, through LinkedIn. I would love to hear more from you about this particular discussion. As I said, we are continuing this discussion regarding contracts this month of February. Our theme is contracts in the workplace, and we're looking forward to keep this discussion going, looking at different facets of this particular topic. Zippy, you have something final to say as we come to a close?
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, our viewers. Let me say this. When it comes to contract alteration, consultation is mandatory. Consent is not. And where consent has not been given, then seek consultation with the relevant people, with the legal counsel. If you have a CBA, seek consultation with the relevant people who are involved in that CBA. As Mother was talking, I was just thinking about some of the reasons why alteration of contracts, come into play. And one of the things that came to mind is, for instance, when you've had like open-ended contracts and you want to shift those contracts to fixed-term contracts, it's a serious alteration of an existing contract. And a lot of times there's resistance. So again, documentation is so key. When we're thinking about technology, and the way technology is catching up with us, it's changing the way jobs are looking. Again, alteration of contracts sometimes become necessary. So even as we come to bring this to a close, it's important for us to also think about the kind of contracts we're giving our employees. We need to think about the content in that contract. When you have done your contracts, seek a labor lawyer who will also help you make sure your contract has covered the different aspects that will bring challenges when you are having these agreements with your employee. So very important to consult, very important to document.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies. I'm really appreciative of the discussion that we've had today. And to our listeners and viewers, this hot discussion, this great intellectual discourse that we are providing here at Aurum Podcast is going to continue next week, same time, same place. So we would love, make sure that you book your time, book your date, 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. Come in, let us continue discussing these issues regarding contracts and all matters regarding human resource. I'm your host, Anthony Kuria, and I'm very grateful that you could join us today. Make sure that you join us next week, same time, same place. Till then, take care and God bless you.